In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be discussing Inter's season progress with Serie A commentator Marco Palmieri. We'll be reviewing the Shakhtar and Venezia wins. We'll be previewing the Spezia and Roma games, this week's Moggi, Moratti and Frog, and much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, or StudioInter.com. Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. After a few weeks of hiatus due to minor sickness, life getting in the way, and schedules not working, etc., we are really sorry about that, but we are back now, and we will be back every week again as per usual, so normal scheduling resumed. And I've got an excellent panel here with me today, starting with the SempreInter.com preview writer, Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
I am doing fantastic. All is well. It's a great time to be in Moland. Yeah, things are looking up. So I'm glad that this is the season or the episode that we kick off the series in.
Yeah, Inter is in Mr. Positivity land, so to speak. And we're also joined by the feature writer on Sempre Inter, writes pens the weekly column 5 Things We Learned from Inter this week, Mr. Jake Smalley.
Hi, Nima. How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling? How's your was it arm you broke, or what did you do?
Yeah, I've broken my arm and I've broken my wrist. Yeah, so I'm currently sat here with a big, massive cast on my arm. So that's been the last couple of weeks for me, as well as touring some of Northwest England's best non-league football grounds. So if you're into looking at non-league football, give Ground Gaggers a follow on Instagram, because that's been how I'm going to, even going forward, that's how I'm going to try and make use of my international weekends. And to be honest, I'm actually feeling in a really positive mood about Inter tonight. So I'm hoping to join more on the positivity bandwagon.
Well, that's absolutely. Everybody check that out. I, for one, am going to subscribe to that now. I can't wait to see that. You going around the following non-league teams, and that's going to be really interesting. And we have a very special guest. He's a Serie A commentator. He's been on the show countless times. We're really happy that he's back again. Welcome back, Mr. Marco Palmieri.
G'day, Nima. G'day, fellas. It's a pleasure to be back as always.
Well, let's start with. I mean, you've been on for almost a year, and a lot of things have happened at Inter. Inter won the Scudetto. Antonio Conte left. Achraf Hakimi was sold. Romelu Lukaku was sold. Christian Eriksen had a medical emergency. Simone Inzaghi came in. Things, didn't start off maybe a little bit rocky. Things started off a little bit rocky. Hakan Çalhanoğlu, didn't start so well. Then he scored in the derby. I mean, there's so much to talk about. So I'm kind of asking you to give your thoughts a little bit, like, now that some time has passed all of this and we're kind of reaching the end of the year, calendar year, so to speak. What are your thoughts of what everything that's happened in the past 6 months?
Wow. Where to start, Nima? Oh, my word. Okay, you've given me a big task here. Let me see. Okay, well, let's try and unpick all of that one by one. So, I mean, obviously, Inter winning Scudetto, very good. Conte, Lukaku, Hakimi leaving, not so good. But all things considered, I mean, looking at where we are at the moment, in this point of the season, I think Inter have done pretty well despite those 3 setbacks. And always, I don't know if it's a coincidence, Nima, but when you invite me on, it seems to always be on the back of a win, or in this case, 3 wins in a row. So,
is this the point where we announce that you're always going to be on now?
I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, Nima. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm glad you always get me on a high note, shall we say, to talk about Inter. So yeah, it's been such a good season, and I'm not just talking about Inter, obviously, in this when I say this, but I mean Inter has been a big part of that. Losing just the one match against Lazio in the league, and pretty much dominating. In most of their other matches, it's been it's been good to see. It's been really, really exciting. And now they're within 4 points, 1 point behind Milan. I mean, just letting go of the past, I guess, for a little bit. I think the new signings have more than allowed Inter to forget about the past. And, you know, the signing of Inzaghi has had a lot to do with that. But yeah, looking at the present, I mean, there's a lot to be happy about if you're an Inter fan right now. And the last 2-3 matches this week has just been outstanding for Inter. It's just been a real, you know, launching pad, you'd have to say, for the rest of their season. And I guess, you know, having been a little hardly done by in that Milan match where they dominated for so much, but came away with a point nonetheless, and then really showing their Scudetto credentials against Napoli, like with a quite dominant performance, has really put Inter in good stead. And yeah, I mean, it if you talk about the setbacks, you did mention Eriksen, which was pretty major setback, and the team did well to get behind him, and, you know, to make sure that that he felt the love, so to speak, and who knows if he'll ever wear a blue and black jersey again, but I'm sure that he would be trying to do everything possible to make that happen. But yeah, Çalhanoğlu has stepped into his shoes very well, and, you know, I think the turning point for his season was that penalty in the derby. There's no question. I mean, that was just an incredible bit of sporting history for somebody, you know, in the away match to step up and take the penalty in that situation and deliver just, you know, such ferocity and such quality, and, you know, and to be given that opportunity. And I guess he probably has now earned the right to be the leading penalty taker for Inter. I don't know if you agree about that, but
I agree 100%.
So,
I don't want to see Lautaro take penalties ever again. But it looks like he fluffs them. Çalhanoğlu, he hits. It feels like he puts his laces through them. Do you know what I mean? Like he's resolute in his finishing, and Lautaro is most like his finishing. It's rather fluffed, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think the penalties he took earlier in the season, you know, he wasn't going through the best state of form either. With the striker, you really need to be scoring and at a constant rate to feel confident, and it wasn't, you know, the best time for him to take a penalty. I think he just wanted to, you know, get the weight off his shoulders. I think, you know, he scored the penalty this weekend because Çalhanoğlu wasn't there, but yeah, I think he'd already scored against Napoli, so that was a big, you know, drought breaker for him and a big sigh of relief. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question. I've kind of just rambled on a bit there, as I often like to do. But yeah, no, I think everything's very positive for Inter right now. And despite their third place on the ladder, I think they've got a really, really good chance of being winter champions.
For sure. I want to ask you a little bit just before we leave. Do you think that, like, out of all the players that are no longer here, which player do you think would suit, had he stayed, would have suited this Inter the best?
Okay, so if we limit ourselves to
Eriksen, Hakimi, Lukaku.
Yeah, out of those three, how can you say that Lukaku wouldn't have had an influence? I think
he would have been devastating.
Side. Yeah.
No, but the way that Inter attack as well. I mean, and I'm not criticizing Dzeko, because I think you can't ask more from him than what he's already done. I think he's surpassed everyone's expectations, both on and off the pitch, his attitude and all that. So it's not a criticism on him, but I was a little bit skeptical when Inzaghi wanted him to play more in the penalty area, as he said, because I think that I'm with Conte on Lukaku, in the sense that I think you should use Romelu Lukaku in the build-up play, and use him as a target man and have him attack space, because I think he's absolutely unstoppable when you do that, because he has everything, both in terms of technique, physique, speed, strength, all of it. I think he's a complete striker. I think in this Inter he would have been absolutely devastating.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, he had a lot of help, but that was it was two of his, obviously by his own admission, probably 2 seasons that really put him on the world stage once again. And yeah, I can't see his presence being anything but positive in any side, let alone that of Inter, where it already sowed his roots, so to speak.
Agreed. Right, I'm going to pass you over to Mo. Mo, did you have a question for Marco? Then the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, Marco, you kind of answered my question in your closing of the last, in the answer to the last question about Inter being winter champions. But maybe we can expand on that a little bit. For me, this Napoli game kind of felt like a bit of a watershed moment for Inter. We know that Inter, like you said, kind of outplayed Milan, kind of outplayed Juventus, wasn't able to win on the 3 points. And they kind of stepped up. It seemed like the team needed a little bit more spine and cynicism and control. Like a results-oriented approach to the game. I felt, while the last few minutes were far from ideal in terms of controlling their destiny with their own feet, so to speak. But I feel like this game might be an important one when we look back in May or June at how the season went. Do you get that feeling as well? Do you feel like the team is growing, or is it just the same Inzaghi's Inter? Sometimes they're wasteful, and sometimes Handanovic has a good game, and he sort of steps up, and this is how the cookie crumbles.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you, Mo. This week in general has been, basically a key week for Inter. The 3 matches, and I include the one in Venezia because it all could have been undone with a poor performance there. Instead, they kept the momentum. They completely dominated. They conceded very few chances and came away with a win, albeit pretty discreet. I think the last 10-15 minutes, I think most Inter fans around the world would have been expecting an equaliser. If the way that the match had gone, I think it really would have been a very, very cruel way to end the match. But yeah, the Napoli game was sensational in many aspects. I think the fact that they were trailing, they managed to take the ball away from a team who have who led by Spalletti, who knows Inter very well and really has been playing the best football of the season, in Serie A for sure, Napoli, and Inter really dominated for a very large part of that match. And it definitely allowed Inter to say, they put up their hand and said, look, we're here to be counted. And then Shakhtar, which also was never going to be easy. It was always a banana skin type of match there because they were in that do or die situation in the Champions League, and to have into the next stage after 10 years, something that so many have tried and failed. Simone Inzaghi is absolutely thrilled about that, and he has a chance also to finish top. In light of the draw that's going to come out. Inter will be playing Champions League in February, and it's quite incredible. But I mean, Inzaghi has a lot to be thankful for, and he has to take a lot of credit as well. He's kind of built this team in a way that all the individuals have been able to shine, but still have that cohesive unit, and which is what we saw in previous years. Not necessarily on paper the strongest team, but just as a team, you just felt that they were enjoying themselves. You felt that they were playing for each other and knew what their role was. I think now Inzaghi's managed to do the same thing. He's got, some of the best performances out of some of his players. I mean, I just look at the quality of Perisic. He has shone absolutely, as far as the amount of the way that he's been able to dominate and increase the quality of his personal play as well. It's incredible. And you've got a midfield which is the best in Europe. There's got to be said. There's so much quality with Brozovic, Çalhanoğlu, Barella, and then Perisic and Darmian now on the wings. They're playing so well together. It's and they're allowing each other to shine and to bring out their own best qualities. So I think you got to really give it to Simone Inzaghi, whose task was never really going to be easy, taking over from Conte. But I think this week has really given the whole team a big boost, and it'll be interesting to see how they get through the next few weeks. And Winter Champions is there. It's there for the taking. I mean, the draw is favourable. Inter only have a real test away to Roma on Saturday night, but other than that, it's a pretty. You'd have to say 4 winnable matches against Spezia, Cagliari, Salernitana, and Torino, and then you've got Napoli, who have got to take on Atalanta and Milan. So I mean, they have obviously the capability, but Atalanta, another top team, and let's not forget Sassuolo on Wednesday is also a tricky obstacle for Napoli. So I think it's all looking good for Inter.
For sure, it sure does that. I'm going to hand you over to Jake before I ask you a few more questions, and then before we let you go ahead, Jake.
To be honest, I've been thinking a little bit over the past week, given that it's confirmed that Inter will now play the knockout stage of the Champions League. What sort of ceiling do you think they have in that competition? I think getting the Scudetto won last year maybe puts a little bit less pressure on retaining this year, given the circumstance of what happened over the summer and it being Inzaghi's first year in charge. But he's managed to actually break that sort of Champions League duck that's existed over the last couple of years. Where do you think they can get to in the Champions League this year? Do you think it'll just be a case of them drawing Bayern Munich next time and getting wiped out, or do you think they can really progress?
With the Champions League, it's always a pretty. There's a lot of luck. There's a big element of luck involved, and the draw is one thing that can always go against you. I think the way that Inter have played, and I think the match against Real Madrid is also going to be a test to see how far they can actually do in February. So, I mean, last year they played in Madrid. They weren't bad. I mean, they actually dominated for a large part of that match as well in Madrid. So I don't think Inter, the way that they're playing at the moment, have really anything to fear when they go to try and win top spot. There's a big prize at stake as well for winning that match against Real. I think it's next Tuesday night. Yeah. So it's that will be a big test to see how well. How much motivation, how much confidence they have in themselves to progress. But with the Champions League, it's one of those competitions that I think if you've really got any chance of winning, you've really got to be peaking at about that time of the year, like February, March, then when the real tests are coming away. And if Inter are still in the hunt for the Scudetto, which I expect them to be, possibly even with the Coppa Italia out of the way, I think they'll be definitely the team that most other European teams will want to avoid in a draw.
Right. I mean, how far? I mean, speaking of that, how far do you think Inter can go? Was my question. So that's a nice segue. I think a quarterfinal is where we can pretty much. That's where I think Inter's level is right now. Or do you think they can even surprise and go all the way, as Arturo Vidal seems to think, and Venezia coach Paolo Zanetti seems to think?
Yeah, that was great from Venezia on the weekend. I loved how they were so just outspoken as how good they saw an Inter team play. Their social media manager really deserves a round of applause for immediately tweeting how monumental Inter seemed from up close. And Paolo Zanetti as well, great guy. But how far can they go? It's difficult to say. It really is. It's hard to put, especially for a side that hasn't played in the knockout stages of the Champions League for so long. I mean, they did well in the Europa League. It wasn't too long ago, but they had the experience of Conte, who'd been there before. Yeah, I think Lazio reached the knockout stage, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did. They did.
With Simone Inzaghi.
They got hammered by Bayern Munich.
That's right. But there you go. I mean,
Johnny and Patrick and the rest of the freak show in that defense.
Yeah. That can happen in the Champions League. You know, you get pitted against one of the favourites. You know, like it could be Liverpool. It could be, who knows, Bayern Munich or another favourite. So, yeah, I don't think Inter are just quite ready to take on one of those two at this point. But who knows? A bit later on in the track, if they do keep, you know, the good performances up in the league and the confidence is high, then yeah, they can take care of any other team in Europe for sure.
Yeah. Before we let you go, I just wanted to quickly, give us your top 6 in the Serie A, how you think it's going to finish. And your Coppa Italia winner, Super Coppa Italia winner, and your Capocannoniere. Let's start with the 1 to 6 in the Serie A.
Right. So this is the moment I've been dreading all.
Yeah, I know.
all day. Just because I don't know how well I did last year. I don't know. Probably pretty bad. But yeah, I always tend to put in like a surprise packet that, you know, throws everybody into, oh yeah, as if that's going to happen. But look, I don't know. Oh, it's such a great season. I'm just so happy with the way that the whole Serie A is panning out. Like really all the bottom teams that can go and like 2 teams to win it at the Allianz Stadium is just unbelievable so far, you know. Or 3 actually, Atalanta, Sassuolo and Empoli. I mean, you know, so anything can happen. I think it's so difficult to put Juventus out of the top 6. I just cannot see them not qualifying for Europe, to be honest. So, but then, yeah, there's all sorts of things that can happen off the pitch as well, as far as this lady is concerned. That may, So, you know, who's to say? Never a dull moment in Serie A. Okay, so. I'm pretty sure I picked Inter last year. I'll have to do them again to this tonight. So I'll go Inter, Atalanta, Napoli, Milan. And they're the top 4. So Juventus is out. Ooh, controversial.
Inter, Napoli, Atalanta. Sorry, what was it?
No. I went Inter, Atalanta, Napoli, Milan.
Okay, Inter, Atalanta, Napoli, Milan. Okay. Yeah.
And then Juve, Lazio.
Oh, not Mourinho, not Roma.
Not Mourinho.
You have more faith in Sarri than I do, because I am very disappointed in what I've seen from Sarri so far.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I do have a bit more faith in Sarri, I've got to say. I love Sarri. I love his football.
No, I like it. I like his football. I like his football. I'm really disappointed with his Lazio. I was expecting them to look much more. You know, after that show, what they showed against Napoli was just dreadful. I mean, they looked like the side that's just been together for a few days.
What 3-0 down after 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it was such a dominant performance from Napoli. They were incredible, absolutely incredible. I mean, Lazio had their chances as well in the first half. I got to say, there were a couple of tense moments and good save from Ospina here and there, but I don't know. Yeah, they beat Inter. That's all I can say. So, they've got something in there. I think they can, I think I'll stick with my initial 6.
Okay,
there you go.
Fair enough.
Leave them in.
Who'll win the Coppa Italia and Super Coppa, and who's your Capocannonieri?
Okay, I'd love Atalanta to pick up some silverware finally. And so I'll say them for the cup. And Capocannoniere. Tough call, this one. It would have been Osimhen. I've got to say.
I've got Osimhen. I had Osimhen because I did mine in the beginning of the season. I said it's going to be Osimhen, but there's no way it's going to be Osimhen now.
No, it's going to be tough. Duvan Zapata.
Oh, why not? I like that. Super Coppa winner. Do you think Inter?
Super Cup. Inter will be in that. Yeah, of course. Oh, I won't be here for that actually. Oh, I really wanted to go. Oh no, I'm heading down south.
You're going.
I'm going back home for for a few weeks. So yeah. Oh man. Oh yeah. Inter will win that.
Hope you're right. From your mouth to the football god's ears, Marco.
Yeah, I know. Hey, it's out there now. It's I can't take it back.
No backsies. Right. Before we let you go, if people want to follow you on social media, then the floor is yours.
Yeah, no. Marco27 is my Twitter handle. Always good to hear from anybody that listens. And yeah, keep enjoying Serie A. Having a great
and you keep doing an excellent work together with your colleagues.
Cheers, Nima.
Serie A. So covering Serie A. So thank you so much. Take care, Marco. Talk to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Right, guys. Let's talk about the Champions League and the importance and what it means. Now that Inter are after for the first time in 10 years. I mean, Mo, I was there at the San Siro covering that game against Marseille, and I remember in the official post-match press conference with Didier Deschamps looking like the arch Juventino he is, and talking about how he was going to celebrate with champagne, and Claudio Ranieri was coaching Inter, and it was all rather miserable. But here we are again, and of course it depends on the draw, but I mean, what your initial reactions, Mo? I'll start with you. What's your initial reaction to this, and how far do you think it can go?
Honestly, it was relief. The initial reaction was relief coupled with a bit of disbelief. It's been a long time, and like that night in Rome when Vecino scored the winner and got us back into the Champions League. That was a pretty special night. But the eventual disappointment of just not making it out of the group stages, I mean, it kind of took the shine out of making it to the Champions League. What was the point of reaching the Champions League if you can't get out of the group? And I think now for the first time, I feel like we're a proper European team again. I mean, the Europa League run was very nice. Don't get me wrong. I take that any day over getting knocked out in the round of 16. However, I think making it into the I was quite surprised at myself at having felt so elated. I didn't think it would mean this much to me, but it really did. I felt very, very happy. And I think it really is a marker in this team's development, in this project's development, that we're actually part of the European project, the UEFA European project, quote unquote, at the moment.
What about you, Jake? I mean, how far do you think this team can go? And also I'm going to ask you both which teams you want to avoid. Personally, I want to avoid Liverpool, Man City, and Bayern Munich, those three sides. The rest of them, I think Inter can on a good day threaten, but those three, I don't want to face them in the round of 16. What about you, Jake?
Yeah, I think the big one to avoid is going to be Liverpool. I think, in my opinion, they're the favourites for the tournament. I think the way that they're playing football at the moment, it suits playing in Europe as well. From a personal standpoint, I don't want to play Liverpool either. I've got a lot of Liverpool supporting friends, and I couldn't cope with getting absolutely battered by them. And all Serie A sucks, and so I've no time for that. But to be honest, I think I'm really positive about this because I think it's a really good opportunity to see where Inter are at. I think you talk about domestically. I think Inter have played pretty well in the league this year, but they've not been brilliant yet. I still think that the best form is yet to come in the league. I still think the way that they're learning under Inzaghi, coping with the departures of key players from last year. So I think, and they're still doing pretty well. I actually feel quite confident about retaining the title. Well, a lot more so than what I did last time we spoke, which is, it just shows you how quick things can change in football, doesn't it? But it'll just be a really good test. I don't think there's any pressure on Inter. I think even if they get knocked out around the 16, they've broke that duck to get to this point. If they draw a decent side and get knocked out, There's no shame in it. It's simply a really good opportunity for them to test themselves against some of Europe's best. So I think potentially all hinges on the draw. You know, not like Marco was just saying, it is a lot based on luck, isn't it, as well? I mean, Atalanta a few years ago, they lost their first 3 group games, snuck through, and, they're in the semi-finals pretty much. So it's hard to say. It all depends on the next round draw, doesn't it, really? I don't see why they can't reach quarterfinals, though, like you were saying.
For sure. What about you, Mo? Which teams do you want to avoid? I have Liverpool, Bayern, and Man City that I absolutely want to avoid. What about you?
I tend to agree with Jake in that I think the pressure is off of Inter, and there isn't honestly, I don't care. I really don't care. Maybe I'll eat my words later when the draw gets made. But at this point in time, I'm just happy to be there. And I agree with you. If there are 3 bogey teams in Europe, it's the 3 most informed teams. It's not PSG. It is City. It is Liverpool, and it is Bayern Munich. But if we do face any of those, I wouldn't mind the team getting tested against these teams. So no, I'm more laissez-faire at this moment. At this point in time, I'm happy to face anyone, proud to take part. Let's say.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I mean, we're playing. We played Venezia, and we drew the derby. We beat Napoli, so things are pretty good. But now, this Spezia game that we play on Wednesday at home, that's a game I just expect Inter to win. So I don't want to dwell too much on that. I want to focus on the Roma game because that is going to be tasty. It's Mourinho. It's at the Olimpico. It's a ground where Inter drew last season. And it's Mourinho. This is the first Mourinho experience for the first time as an opponent since the treble, which is rather remarkable, really, when you think about it. That Inter have not crossed paths with them. Now they will. So I don't know. This is going to be special. I don't know how to feel about this because of all the attachment to the treble team and him for what he did and the way that Inter won that treble in the most Inter way possible against everything and everyone, contro tutto e tutti. So I do expect Inter to win that game because I think Roma are a team that you can hurt in defense, and also they'll be missing their captain Pellegrini, who's out until 2022. I think that's a massive loss for them. But what kind of game are you expecting, Jake? And what do you think is going to happen? Can we have a prediction on that?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky fixture. I've seen quite a lot of Roma this year, to be fair, and bar the opening couple of games where they seem to be running on sort of pure adrenaline, I've been really sort of underwhelmed. However, I do think back to that game last season with the 2-2 draw, and it was really frustrating to not end up getting the 3 points out of that. I think Mancini scoring at the end was a really frustrating sort of moment. Roma decided couldn't beat any of the top teams, and you can sort of draw parallels to that a little bit with Lazio this season. Lazio really struggling in big games, yet they've managed to take points off Inter in a game. So it can't be underestimated, but in all honesty, I didn't expect Inter to deal with Shakhtar and Sheriff the way that they have done this year. I thought that they'd be potential banana skins. They gave themselves some pretty tough tasks to climb through to get through to the next stage of the Champions League, and they've managed that. So maybe there's a different side to Inzaghi's Inter. Maybe they've got a bit more steel about them. I don't think maybe they've been as flamboyant as what they were the back end of last year, blowing teams away. But maybe there's an inner sort of bit of resoluteness that we can take from those games. I think Mourinho's got quite a lot to prove. I think perhaps they're playing Roma at maybe a decent time, Inter in good form. I think if I'm going to stick my neck out, I think I'm going to predict Inter to win this game. I want to think about it positively and give them a chance. So I'm going to go with 2-1 to Inter.
Fair enough. What about you, Mo? What do you think?
Maybe I'm all emotional this episode, but it's not gonna be easy for me, honestly, to see Jose on not just coaching against Inter, but coaching against Inter for a team in the Serie A. It's far from ideal. But honestly, I think Inzaghi, I kind of trust the guy, man. I think honestly that Napoli game gave me a lot of optimism. Like looking forward, I think the man knows how to manage games well, or is learning how to manage games well or better now. I think the squad is definitely far stronger than Roma's. So I think we're going to win. I think it's definitely a scoring win for both sides. I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet, but I definitely think we're going to win. I think the key players that usually turn up in these matches, whether it's a Darmian or a D'Ambrosio or even a Skriniar, might be the one who kind of wins it off of the corner towards the end of the game. But I think maybe a 2-1 or a 3-2, but one of those high-scoring games between Inter and Roma, where we don't keep a clean sheet, and it's a bit of a derby game.
No, that's true. I mean, Edin Dzeko's back. I mean, he after the years he had at Roma, D'Ambrosio is he'll be there, but Darmian won't be, and Ranocchia won't be, and I think that's a shame because I think Ranocchia's been outstanding, and so has Darmian. He's probably been Inter's most informed player.
Do we know how long Darmian's out for?
Yeah, they released it's at least 2 weeks. It's going to be at least 2 weeks. Inter released a statement today. They didn't say exactly 2 weeks, but when you have that kind of a thigh strain and it's
I still stand by. I think De Vrij should be back for the game though, if I'm not mistaken, because he was scheduled to be out for a week last weekend. So I think maybe he'd be practicing with the team starting, let's say, Thursday, Friday.
Well, we know that Alexis Sanchez and Arturo Vidal have been kind of have been training with the team, so I think they'll be definitely back. I think if De Vrij is, I think he needs to at least have a 2-3 days of. I don't think they want to risk him because with games, so many important games coming up, but. We'll have to wait and see, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to definitely be interesting for sure. I believe in a high-scoring game as well. These two teams can't defend, and Inter can defend. They don't have a goalkeeper. Roma can't defend and have a good goalkeeper. So there's going to be goals. I think it's about something that I've been complaining about, this lack of killer instinct in the box that we saw against Shakhtar. Dzeko and the guys miss a lot of chances, but I think against Venezia that wasn't the case. They were rather clinical. They just controlled the game, and I hope to see something similar like that against Spezia as well, just a controlled performance. But against Roma, whenever they get the chances, they have to bury them. They have to kill Roma off, because Roma are just like Mourinho. When they feel that they're in the hunt, if it's 1-0 and 10 minutes left, that's going to make me crawl out of my skin from nervousness, because they will score, or 2-1 or 3-2 or something like that. I want Inter to kill off the game when they get a chance. They have to do that against Roma, because it's one of those sides. They're just one of those sides that, and they're very, they can almost overperform when things are going their way and they feel like they got a chance. And I don't want to give Jose and Roma that. But no, I'm going to go with a 3-2 as well. I'm with you on that. And as for Spezia, I'm thinking 2-0. Comfortable 2-0. Nothing dramatic. Nothing like that. Nothing serious. Just an easy walk in the park win against Spezia, the way that it should be.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of writing the preview at the moment. Spezia have a leaky defense. I think it's probably going to be a bit more than 2-0. I go for a nice whopping 4-0. I want that clean sheet.
The clean sheet would be awesome against these lesser teams, because we won't have them against the big teams.
I think Lautaro's going to blow everyone out of the water and get a hat trick, and I think Dzeko will find the back of the net too.
For sure. Right. I'm with you. Yeah. Something. What about you, Jake? What do you think?
I think it all depends on what sort of side he puts out. I think that's the question. And I've been someone who's advocated quite heavily for a bit of rotation in games like this. I think, if you're looking at trying to get a decent side to get it to play in Europe, you look at the recent fixture sort of schedule that's just passed. Must-win games against Sheriff, Shakhtar, Milan, Napoli, Juventus, even not too long ago. I think you've got to rest players for this game. I think it's perfect to play the likes of Ranocchia, if possible. It might be a good game to get Dumfries, a little bit of confidence, especially with Darmian not played. It might be that it's enforced that he plays anyway. This is where Nandez would come in handy, by the way. I think if I'm going to be pushed, I'd like to see Correa get a couple of goals. A really good opportunity for him if he can start the game. And I think Spezia will end up in the bottom three come the end of the season. But Thiago Motta's manager, and I like him, so I feel a bit mean. But yeah, no, 4-0. 4-0.
Okay, then that's how it is. Right, let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the positivity, which we presented by Mr. Positivity, this week's Moratti, Mohamed Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of these qualities.
Yeah, guys, it's been a while since I felt I need to call out the manager, the coach. But like we said, we've spoken about this all episode long, that qualification from the group, the ability to win games that you really needed to win, the way he's growing with the team and in his ability to manage big games as evidence against Napoli. I think this week's my Moratti of the week for this week has got to be Simone Inzaghi. I think I'm starting to feel joy every time I see his picture on the club social media. You know, I feel this compulsion to like and any image with Inzaghi, his celebrations after the goals. I'm in. I'm even more bought in than I was at the beginning of the season. I was pretty bought in then anyway.
Well, I've felt that way for a long time. You know how much I love the guy, so I'm just happy that everyone else is seeing what been on, joining the train, the Simonic train or the Limone train, as some have called it. Right, let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which we presented by Mr. Jake Smalley.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
I think this is quite a tough category, actually. It gets quite difficult some weeks trying to think of some sort of quite funny, difficult stories that I've stumbled across. I've tried to bypass Erling Haaland having his one-man war with some Wolfsburg fans. I've tried to sort of look past Devison's ridiculously weird jumping on the floor, because that made me angry, and I'm not a fan of diving football. So, as a true British man that I am, as I'm sure people who listen to this podcast are aware, because I do worry sometimes that my accent does kind of ruin the aesthetic, especially when you have somebody as beautiful as Marco Palmieri on with his lovely Italian Australian twang. But what encapsulates Northern British football in this country, for those of you who listen abroad, is Mr. Sean Dyche. So yesterday, with the game being called off, extreme weather conditions in the northwest of England yesterday caused the Burnley game against Spurs to be called off. And the reaction to this was Sean Dyche to walk onto the pitch, stand there in just his shirt, with his arms outstretched, laughing as loud as possible. So for me, that totally encapsulates what it means to live in my part of the country and how we laugh at the elements.
Fair enough. Right, let's move on to something much more negative. This week's Moggi, which we presented by myself. So this week's Moggi is none other than Moggi's old club, Juventus. For once again, we can always count on them to drag the Italian football through the mud by not obeying the rules and the law. And this time they have everyone inflates player values, but no one does it at the level that Juventus have done it. And they've been doing it because they bought Cristiano Ronaldo, a player they couldn't afford. As we've learned from the phone taps that the police have made of Paratici, Nedved and Agnelli, they're not going to get relegated. There's no way they're going to get relegated. There's not going to have any point deductions because it doesn't. The law doesn't work like that. You have to satisfy certain criteria in order to reach to be able to warrant. I mean, them being relegated. You have to show that they gained an illegal sporting advantage from that, and it's a very hard thing to do when they sent Joao Cancelo to Man City for Danilo and argue successfully that they gained a sporting advantage when doing that. They absolutely cooked the books, but to go from that to a sporting advantage is, that's a very stringent statute and law, and I don't see that happening. But they will be fined. and and they, they will be fined, and the people involved will probably get prosecuted and indicted and probably convicted, but then they'll get a commuted sentence. But I mean, aside from that, it was so unnecessary. The way that they've completely made a mess of this, and everyone inflates player values, and to some extent that's allowed, because we're not dealing with commodities, we're dealing with players, and there's nothing tangible to decide. At the end of the day, a player's worth what the selling club accepts for an offer from the buying club. So it's not an exact science. But some of the things they've done is just absurd. Selling players that are hardly Serie C, Lega Pro value level players for 10, 50, for a total value of 20, 30 million euros in plusvalenza, in capital gains, and it's so obvious, and it's like, once again, Juve doing Juve things. But I mean, at the end of the day, people hoping that Juve are going to get relegated or having point deductions, not going to happen. They're going to probably get a fine. And the 3 directors who kind of sanctioned this and did this, they will get personally indicted, most likely. And as I said, if they get convicted because it's a white collar crime, they'll probably get commuted sentences. And if not, they'll do the old Berlusconi, meaning they'll appeal until the statute of limitations kicks in, and then that's that. Right, that's all we had time for this week. I'd like to thank Marco for coming on. I'd like to thank you, Mo, for being with me.
It really is always a pleasure. Thank you, guys. Always great talking Inter with you.
Absolutely. And I'd like to thank you, Jake.
No, thank you very much for having me, as always. It's been good to chat about Inter, actually, after a couple of weeks break. It seems a bit like a different Inter to when we last spoke about. We've seen some really steely performances in different types of games. So I'm feeling really positive, and hopefully 6 more points this week.
Yeah, for sure. That's all we had time for this week. I'd like to, until next week, take care of each other, listen to your authorities, stay safe. 6 points, and sempre e solo forza.